So let's move ahead to this week's topic, that is the last protocol that we are going to see before we start learning web design. We should understand what is this protocol. Okay, so what is hypertext transfer protocol? Okay, now one thing you must be thinking that okay, what does the HTTP do? HTTP is basically transferring HTML files and other files from the server to your client, right? And it can also upload files to the server. Okay, so basically it is transferring files between the server and the client. Then if this is doing this particular thing, then why is there FTP, right? So FTP and HTTP both are doing almost the same thing, but thus there is one major difference. The major difference is the hypertext part. Okay, now the reason why it is called hypertext is because if you open a normal notepad file or basically a text file, it is not hypertext. Hypertext means it is not browsable. Okay, you cannot link from one file to another file directly. Okay, but in hypertext files you have a way of browsing the page. Okay, so if you open one page, then you can go to another page. Your pages can have other contents also, like for example, your page can have an image, your page can have music, your page can have video. So like that, there are multiple objects that can be, or we call it hypermedia, that can be there in your page. And obviously these things can be opened on your local PC with the help of FTP also. But there is one slight problem with that. Now, if there is an HTML file, let me just show you one example. Let me just, for example, I've just created this hello.html. If I open this, you can see it opens this page. It simply says hello world. Okay, I have done nothing inside it except I have written a text called hello world. Okay, now if this is the case, then obviously I can use simple FTP server. What I have to do is I just have to download the web page from the server and then just open it, right? So like this, I will be downloading each and every file and opening it. Do you think this is feasible in real life? That let's suppose I want to browse the internet. Okay, let's say for example Google. Okay, so I want to search for something, right? And once I search, I get around a billion entries for that particular search. Is it possible for me to download each and every entry and check what are the contents? Okay, so that is not possible. That's why we don't use FTP for that thing. We use HTTP protocol for such kind of thing where you want to browse the internet. Okay, because of the concept of hypertext. Okay, so let's move ahead. So now let's go into a bit more in detail of how the protocol works. Okay, now before I go to this particular part, you should understand that HTTP protocol and HTML language is completely different. Okay, now HTTP protocol is the protocol used to transfer the HTML files. Okay, so all the HTML files will be stored on the server, and from there, when you want to download the server or view the file, view the web page, then you have to download it from the server by using some protocol. Okay, so that protocol that we use is the HTTP protocol. Okay, now this particular slide, what it shows you is how your HTTP protocol works. Okay, so basically your HTTP consists of two things: your request and your response. Okay, so basically whenever you want to get any web page from the server, you have to first send a request, and to that the server will respond, okay, with the HTTP response. Okay, so both these messages will have some format. Okay, so because it is a protocol, and once you get into details of the computer networks, you will understand there are lots of protocols, and every protocol has some rules, set of rules to follow. Okay, how the data should look. So basically here also HTTP has a certain rule that you should follow. So basically your HTTP request or response, both of them have similar kind of a structure. Basically, both of them will have a header part, request header part, and the request body part. Okay. In the request part, usually, if usually in most of the cases, there will be no body. Okay. And in the, what do you say? In the response part, there will be most of the times there will be body. Okay. Now body is where your data is sent or received from the server. Okay. And head is the part where all the other information like the location, the type of file, etc will be stored. Okay. So now let us look at the structure of the HTTP request. Okay. So in this green box, I have shown you the structure. So the structure starts like this. The first line, let me just take the annotate. Okay, so this first line is called the request line. Okay, now this request line is nothing but that is the first thing that is encountered by the server. Okay, so this is the thing that is read by the server. Okay, so the first part, okay, over here, if you see, this first part is called the request method. Okay, so there are various methods. I will show you in the next slide what are the various methods, but this will tell you which type of a request is it. Okay, then the second part is the what do you say, location. Okay, location from the uh, uh, root directory. Okay, so basically if I just if you have if you know how the directory structure works, this basically means your current working directory. Okay, inside that, this is just an example. So inside that, it says that there is a folder called doc, and inside that there is a file called test.html. Okay, so by this thing, what I want to tell the HTML server is that on this particular website, I want to go to that folder doc and get the test.html file. Okay, so that is what I want to tell the web server. Okay, the next part, that is the specification, that is what protocol version I have to use. Okay, now obviously HTTP has been there for so long that there has been many revisions to the protocol. Okay, the first revision was HTTP 1.0. Okay, that was majorly used. Before that also there were other versions, but 1.0 was majorly used. Then there were some drawbacks. I will explain the drawbacks to you in a later slide, but there were some drawbacks. That's why we switched to 1.1. Then after that we went to currently what we are using is 2.0. Okay, so in this particular header request line, this particular box tells you that it is using the HTTP protocol version number 1.1. Okay, so I hope the request line is clear. Okay, the remaining part, that is from here to here, this is the header file. Out of this, you can see the first header. Okay, see, all the headers contains something called as the key value, and there is a separator called separator of colon, and then the value. Okay, so basically this side, the thing to the left of the colon is your key, and to the right is your value. Okay, so you can see in all the header, so this is one header, this is another header, third header, fourth header, fifth header, and sixth header. Okay, so in all the headers you can see there is a colon. So this colon is what is the separator between your key and your value. Okay, so this key tells the HTTP server, or tells the request that to which server it has to go. Okay, so basically it has, this particular key is called host. Okay, So for every request, this minimum this header has to be there. Okay, so we in every request that we are going to send, at least host has to be there. Okay, and other things are also there. The host will tell you what is the website's name. Okay, so for example, if it is google.com, then here it will be google.com. Okay, so host : google.com. So here in this case, in this particular place, it is going to www.test101.com. Okay, next is which type of response it is accepting. Okay, so I am telling the web server that I am going to accept only images. Okay, and this means any type of file. Okay, then here the type of language I'm expecting. Okay, then is there any compression applied? Okay, so all these things are not mandatory. This is just an example. So if even if you do not provide these header, it will still work. I will show you a demo of this working. Okay, then user agent is where it comes to know which browser you're using to browse the internet. Okay, so in this case, you can see user agent is Mozilla 4.0. That means this must be Firefox. Okay, and this is the entire length of the header. It is the entire length of your body part. Okay, so whatever, if there is any body, then that will be the length of the body. Okay, so this is and there is a after the header is complete. So after the header is complete, you can see there is a blank line, and after that, if there is any body, that body will be there. Okay, so this is the complete structure of your request. Okay, now similarly, there will be a response also. Okay, so now that this particular request is now sent to the server. This is created at the client side and then sent to the server. Now once the server receives this, it processes that particular request and sends a response. And look at the response, how the response work. Okay, so in the response, again, here it is slightly different. The first part itself is the version of HTTP. Okay, so which version the web server is going to use, right? So most of the times it is the same version as the request is done on, right? So just imagine I cannot handle 2.0. Okay, my browser is an old browser and I cannot handle version 2.0, and I request 1.1 and the server gives me 2.0 response, then it will not be possible to handle the request. That's why the response version will be most of the time same as the request. Okay, then the second thing is very important. This is the status of the response. Okay, now most of the times what happens is when you send a request, it is possible that the request has some errors. Okay, there can be many types of errors. Like for example, you have reached a website which is no longer active. Okay, or you are requesting a page like index or test.html which is not there on the server. Okay, like there is in many cases, like when you type google.com, it goes to www.google.com. Okay, so that is called redirection. Such kind of a response can be there. So all that can be identified just by looking at the status code of the response. Okay, so now here always if it is 200, that means it is good. Okay, everything went well and your response is perfect. Okay, and whatever you were asking for, the server has given it back to you. Other than this, if any other response code comes, then there must be some problem. Okay, so that we will see what are the different types of response codes that it can send. And you can see the remaining part. Again, this is the status line, and here the remaining part is all the response header. Okay, So in the request part, it was request header. And in this case, this is the response header. And after the response header, you can see your HTML page after in the body part. Okay. So all your HTML content will be there in the body part. So one thing to note is in all the HTTP request or response, there will be three things in your message. The first one is the request line or status line. Okay. If it is a request, it is request line. If it is a status, that is the response, then it is a status line. Then there are headers. Okay, so after the status line or the request line, there will be headers. If it is a request, then it will be request header. If it is a response, it will be response header. And after that, there will be a blank space. And after the blank space, there will be body. And in that body, all the data that you have requested will be there. Okay. I hope this much is understood what the protocol and how it works. Let's go to the next part, that is the various request methods. Okay, so in the request, I have told you that the first part, this is the request header. In the first part, this is the method. Okay, request method. So let us see what all methods are there. Okay, now this is very important for anyone who is going to be a API developer. Okay, in the future, if you are trying to become an API developer, then this is nothing but the REST architecture. Okay, so let me just show you. There are lots of different methods. I have taken only the important ones that we normally use. Okay, so the first one is get method that we have seen in the request method. So get is basically used to get any data from the server. Okay, so it may be a web page, it may be a image, it may be a video, it may be anything that you want that is stored on the server, web server, and you want to download it to your, or you want to get it from the server, you use the get command. Okay, now another option is head. Okay, now this head method is okay. So let me start again from this part. So the first method, that is the get method. So get method is to download any file from the server that is stored on the server. The head method is similar to the get method, but in the head method, you are only downloading the header part of the message, not the body. Okay. So let's suppose you want to download a file, but before downloading a file, you just want to find out what type of a file it is or some other details about the file, then you just download the header part, nothing else. Okay, so for that we use head. Now we usually do not use head as much, right? The things that we going to use is get, then after that post, put, and delete. Okay, so next is post. Now whenever you want to submit something to the server, okay, like for example, you want to submit a form. Okay, submit a form with some entries or some data to the server, then you use something called as post. Okay, so post is normally used to create something new. Okay, create a new resource on the server. Okay, then there is something called as put. Now put is there to update that particular resource that is created using post. Okay, so let's suppose let's say for example, you have a file on the server, let's say your image. Okay, your the DP is there on the server, you want to update it. Okay, now in most of the cases we will be using post only for that, but in REST architecture, what you have to do is whenever you want to update anything on the server, you use the method called put. Okay, And similarly, you must have understood what the delete will be doing. Okay, so whenever you want to delete any resource, you use the delete method. Okay, now you may think which one to, which one will be using in all of the forms. Okay, in all of the forms we'll be using only two get request methods, that is get and post. Okay, because your browser that is there, okay, that browser supports only two methods, that is get and post. Get to retrieve the data from the server, post to to submit the data to the server. Okay, so there are only two methods available in your browser. But when you start developing APIs, like in case of whether it is using React, Vue, or Angular, or even simple JavaScript, you will be using something. There are different architectures. One of the architecture is REST architecture, in which you will be using these methods get, post, put, and delete for doing their respective jobs. Okay, so whenever you want to get any resource, you will be using get. To create a new resource, you are going to do post. To update, put, and to delete, you use delete method. Okay, now some of you may be thinking, what is a resource? Okay, now a resource can be anything. Okay, a resource can be a web page, it can be an image, it can be a CSS file, it can be a JavaScript file, it can be a video, it can be an audio, anything. Okay, or it can even be a simple database entry. Okay, so that can also be called as a resource. So it is very important to understand. That's why I have used a general term as resource and not a file. Okay, so if I say a file, then in that case it may mean only image, or it may mean video, image, audio, like that, right? So by saying a resource, I mean anything. Okay, it can be a web page, it can be a database entry, or it can be a web APIs entry, anything. Okay, so to change anything on the internet using a web server, using HTTP protocol, these are the various methods that are there. Okay, so out of these, we will be using only two for the time being. Okay, that means in the first few chapters, once we reach JavaScript and once we learn Ajax, at that time we will see the remaining methods. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with status codes. Okay, so in the response, I have shown you that, let me just go back to the slide. You can see in the response, the first was the version, and the second was the very important part, that is the status of your response. Okay, so if you look at the status codes, there are various status codes. There are 5 different categories of status codes. Let us see the first one. Okay, so the first one is informational. Okay, so this particular type of response is received when the server is still processing your request and the response is still not there. Okay, sorry. So in that case, we will be using you will be getting a response in the range of 1xx. That xx is numbers. Okay, so there are various different status code. All the status code are of 3 digits. Okay, so now this one series normally we do not get anywhere. So let's go to the second one. The second one is 2 series. Okay, so 2xx. Okay, so this particular series is sent to you whenever the response was successful. Okay, so whenever you send a request and the server understands the request and there is something to respond properly, then you will get a 200 series response. Okay, so I will show you some important status codes that you will usually get, but there are many, so it's not possible to cover anything, but I will cover only the important ones. Okay, the third one is called the redirection status code, where if you get something in the series of 300, okay, so 301, 302, 303, like that, there are many status codes. that means some type of a redirection is there. Okay, like for example, whenever you type google.com, you will not get a 200 status, you will get 301 or 302. That means it is redirected to www.google.com. Okay, so that mapping is done with the help of redirection. Okay, so whenever I will show you a demo of this, at that time you will understand what is redirection. Okay, then the fourth and the fifth is what is important as far as a developer, because the fourth one is called client error. Okay, so anything in the error 400 series, then that will be client error. Now this client error, there are lots of client errors that is possible. Like for example, you didn't submit the required number of fields. Okay, that means there is some data error. It is possible that you have requested a file which is not there on the server. Again, there is a client error. Okay, that means you don't know which page you want, right? So that is again a client error. It is possible that you are not authenticated to view that page. So again, there is a client error. So you are trying to access a page which is not your page. Okay, so again, client. Okay, so basically 400 error is for client side error. Okay, so you should remember that the request is sent by the client to the server. Okay, so it is possible that the client has done some mistake. Okay, so like there are some there are lots of different errors that is possible. Like popular, as Rehan rightly said, 404 is the popular error that you get when that particular resource is not found. Okay, that means you try to request a page which is not there on the server, then what you get is 404 error. Okay, so this is because any client related error, you will get some 400 series error. Okay, so there are lots of different errors. It can be like authentication problem. Okay, so you are trying to access the dashboard of a secure website without logging in, then that will create a authentication error. Then other some form elements are missing. Okay, so that error you can send. There are different types of errors that you can send. I will show you some of the examples. A detailed example I will be detailed cheat sheet I will posting on the Moodle page. Okay, the last one is the 500 series error, which is actually the server error. Okay, now this is usually happens because of the fault of the programmer. Okay, so usually it is possible that you send some request, and there are some syntactic error or some other logical errors that are there on the server's code. In that case, the server will throw an error. Okay, and it will tell you that there is a 500 error. Okay, so whenever there is a 500 error, you should understand that it is not your problem. There is something wrong with the server. Okay, it is even possible that the server is overloaded, and in that case also that particular error may be sent. Okay, so let's look at some of the important status code. 200. Okay, 200 is the most important status code, because if it is 200, that means everything is okay. Okay, then 301 is as you know, 3 means redirection. Okay, so 301 is move permanently to some other place. Okay, so that means when you access a website and you get 301, that means that particular link is no longer active. You should go to another link. Okay, I will show you example of this. And 302 is it's called temporary redirection. Okay, so many a times we will be doing temporary redirection to some other pages. If you have any what do you say, cPanel access or the admin panel access, there you can set up this redirection methods using the cPanel. Okay, then 400 is bad request, where some type of a parameter or something is missing, because of which you get 400. That is bad request. 401 authentication required. Like for example, you are trying to access a page where authentication is required and you have not yet authenticated, then you will get 401 error. Okay. 403 is forbidden. That means that particular page is not accessible to you. Okay. So that error is sent whenever, let's say for example, you are a normal user or you are a student and you are trying to access a page which is meant for the teachers. Okay. So that in that case, you will be given 403. Okay. You will not be given 401 in this case because you are authenticated but you are not authorized. Okay. So authentication and authorization is two different things. Okay. So authentication means you are logged into the system, and authorization means do you have the capability to do that particular task. Okay. So like for example, the admins will have a separate task, the teachers will have a separate task, and the students will have a separate task. Okay. So let's suppose the teacher logs in and tries to fill in the admission form. So again, there will be a 403 forbidden error. Okay. 404, as you know, not found. That means if you try to access a page which is not there on the server, then you will get 404 error. Okay. 405, now this is very important. If you go for REST APIs, let's suppose you have created a page which can only be accessed using post method, but you are trying to access it with get method or put method or delete method, then in that case you will get an error called 405. Okay. So this is very important. If it's if the server says that this file can be accessed only using get method, then the client has to follow it. Okay. So client has to use only get method for that. If the server says post, then you have to follow post. Okay. Then 500 is internal server error. Okay. Now this is usually the error that you get when there is some kind of error in your code. Okay. Now you do not understand what error there is. For that, you have to debug. You have to turn on the debug feature in your in your language. It can be PHP, it can be any other language. So there you have to turn on debugging, and then you will start getting what exactly error there is. Okay. But if there is no error, if you have disabled the error output, then what you will always get is 500. Okay. So that's it for the theory part. Now let's go to the demo. Okay. So let me just minimize everything and open the command prompt. Okay. I hope it's visible. Okay. Okay, you all know how HTTP protocol, how to browse the web page, right? Now, today what I'm going to do is I am actually going to show you how you can browse the internet without a browser. Okay. It is very difficult to do, but I will show you so that you understand how the internet works. Okay. So for that, again, like in the previous lecture, we learned FTP through Telnet. Similarly, we are going to learn this also, HTTP also, with Telnet first, and then we will use some other software to show you how it visually looks. Okay. So let me begin. The first one, let me first start Telnet. Okay. So now in your case, many of you may find, all those who are having Windows 10, you will not find this command telnet in your Windows command line. Okay. For that, you have to turn it on. You have to. Okay. I will open the control panel. Okay. Go to programs, and you can see turn Windows features on and off. Okay. So you click on this, and as soon as you click on this, you will get this small window, and you can go down, and little later you will find Telnet client. Okay. So there in a new system, this will there will be no checked in this checkbox. Okay. So you have to check this and click on OK, and probably it will ask you for a restart. Then you have to do the restart. Okay. So once that is done, now your command line will have this telnet command. Okay. So now once you have the telnet command, you just press enter and you will get inside telnet. Now, usually the command starts working as soon as you type, but let's suppose in case of HTTP protocol, you have to turn on something. It is called set local echo. Okay. So once you set that, now you will be able to see the input that you give to the server. Okay. Otherwise you will see only the output. I want to see the input also. Okay. This is just to show you how your browser handles the request behind your back. Okay. So I'm just going to show you. And once you see this, you will understand that it is a difficult task that the browser performs for you. Okay. So let me do one thing. First, let me open any particular website. Okay, let's open. Now in Telnet, the open command opens a connection, TCP connection to the server. Okay, so which server? Let's suppose google.com. I want to open a TCP connection to google.com. To which port address? So that is very important. And always remember, like all other protocols, HTTP also works on one standard port, that is port 80. Okay. So let's give the port number as 80. If I press enter, you can see it is saying connecting to google.com and then it has halted. Okay. It is working right now. And if you can start composing your request message. Okay. So the reason why it is hanging is it has connected to the server, but you have not sent any header, request header. So it is waiting for your request header. Okay. So let me just go back to my slide and check what is the request header. Okay. So you can see my request header has a format like this. Okay. So let me just try to access this. Okay. So if you see, I can, when I type, it starts from the top. Okay, just check. So I have I have written get over here. Then the next part is the file that I want to get from the server. Okay, so since I want to get the index file of the domain, I am going to write only slash, nothing else. Okay, so whenever you want to find the default file, you will just write slash, nothing else. Okay. Then the next part is the version, that is HTTP slash the version, let's suppose 1.1. Okay. Then do enter. Then the next part is the key value pairs. In my case, I'm going to give host, and the host is, what is the host? Google.com. Okay. That's it. Okay. This is my header. Okay. Now it is very difficult to see because it is overwriting inside the text. I will just write the same thing over here. What I've written on the command line is this. Okay, so this is what I've written. Only thing is it is overwritten over here. Okay, so that's why you can see some part of Microsoft Telnet client still visible. Okay, so now once your data is done, instead of single enter, you have to do double enter to send the request to the server. Okay, so once I press double enter, you can see what is the response that I got. Okay, so the response is, you can see the, let me just open the this thing. So you can see what is the response. So first part is the version, and you can see the version over here, HTTP 1.1. Then the next part is the status code, and the status code says 301. 301 means it is saying that the web page is redirected to some other page. Okay, so it is saying moved permanently, and to where it is moved, it is to the location http www.google.com. Okay, so I was typing google.com, but Google says don't go to google.com, go to www.google.com. So that is what 301 means, moved permanently. Okay. If it is a temporary redirection, you will get 302. Okay. Now, once this is done, you can see the remaining contents, what all things are there, content length, that is the length of this body, everything. Okay. So all these things are there, but we are not interested in that. What we want is we want to see the web page of google.com, but what it says 301 moved. Okay. So now what I have to do is I have to close the connection. Okay. So this, because of the local echo, it is very difficult to type. Okay, so I will start the request again. So I have understood that google.com will not work. I have to go to www.google.com. Let's try that again. So telnet, then set local echo, and then I will open this time www.google.com. Okay, and port is 80. If I enter, it is connected. Now it is waiting for that request message. So let me give the request message. Okay, so you can see what I've typed. It is slightly different this time. Only difference is instead of google.com, I have written www.google.com. Okay, so let's try this now. To send the response, to send the request, I have to press double enter. When I press double enter, you can see a lot of gibberish has been pasted. This is nothing but the web page of Google. Okay. Now, if I copy this into a HTML file and open it, it will open your Google file. Google web page. Okay. So you can see so much code is there. And what is important for us is this 200. Okay. And this means that your web page is open. Okay. Now, obviously, this is not the way we browse the web page. Okay. It is very difficult to do this in this particular fashion. That's why we use browsers. Okay. So the browsers do the same thing. Let me open. Okay. So this opened, right? Now it is not clear what actually happened because everything was handled by the browser, Google Chrome browser, for you. Okay. So it actually went to google.com. It found that the page is not there. Then it sent another request to www.google.com and got the file for you. And you never knew what happened. Okay. All this thing happened automatically. Okay. Sir, can we do directly from inspect in Chrome? Okay, so we can do that. Okay, if you go to network and if I just refresh this, you can see all the different files that were downloaded is there, and you can see the request of www.google.com, but you do not see the request of google.com. Okay, so that request is not seen. So to show you that, I am going to use another software. It is called Insomnia. Okay. I don't know how many of you have heard this. This is basically once you start developing, REST APIs, you will be more using this tool. Okay. So let me go to this particular, let me just clear out everything before I start to show you how. Okay, so this is how your page will look when you start. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to click on this plus button, click on a new request and type any request. Okay, name for your request and type the method of your request, just create, and over here you can select which type of request you want to send. Okay, so let's send get request only, and let us send it to google.com. Okay, so let us send it to google.com. We know that google.com will not work, it will go to www.google.com, but let us see what Insomnia does. Okay, if I send, you can see it has received the web page. This is what exactly what we have seen in the uh, Chrome also, right? But look at the timeline feature. This is the wonderful feature Insomnia has. Just look at the timeline feature. So timeline tells you what all things Insomnia has done in between to get the page. Okay, so you can see at the beginning what it did. Okay, so it did the request get method to the root page with the protocol 1.1 and host google.com. This is exactly what we have sent also using telnet, right? Other than these extra things, we have sent only the first two lines. Okay, so after Insomnia sent this, it got a response the same that we also got, 301 moved permanently. Okay, so if you look at this, it is also giving you a header called location, telling you where this particular web page has been redirected, and it says it has gone to www.google.com. So what Insomnia immediately did, it again sent a new request, but this time it changed the host. Okay, so that the page can be retrieved, and finally Google said 200. Okay, right? So this is the timeline of how the contents are received. Okay, so this is a very good tool to analyze HTTP request. Let me take another request. I am sending another request called http mocker.in/users. Let me do a send method, and you can see in the preview, this is a REST API that I have developed for developers to use. So in this case, it is giving you a list of users, like around 20 users, and in the timeline you can see how it has retrieved this. uh, this is what I wanted to show. Okay, so if you look at the request, whatever is after the domain, okay, so this was my domain, and whatever was after that is the it is the users. Okay, so slash users. So in the request also, you can see after get there is slash users. Okay, and after that there is mocker.in, that is the host, and immediately when you do this, it says 301 moved permanently. And what is the place where it is moved? So it is saying this time it is slightly different. You just look at the location that I have in my server. Okay, in the location what I've done is it is like a security feature that I've added, where users cannot use HTTP protocol to communicate. They have to forcefully use HTTPS. Okay, so that's why I have the server returns moved permanently 301. And what is the location? It is the same, but look at the protocol. It is, instead of HTTP, it is HTTPS. Okay, so it is much more secure than HTTP, right? So that's why there is a 301. And immediately look at this. What it did is again sent a request. Now here you will not see much difference, but it has actually changed the port. Okay, port of communication. Okay, when it is HTTP, it is port 80, and for SSL it is, I think, I am not sure, it is 143, I guess, I'm not sure. So it has communicated to that particular port, and it has got the response, and the response is this. Okay, and let me show you one more thing. If I want to get the first user, okay, so details of the first user. So look at the details. It gives me the first user, but what I want to show you is the timeline. just look at the value of the value after the get method. It is slash users slash one. Okay, so whatever is after the domain comes over here in get method. Okay, it is very important to understand this. Okay, now Zaid Gandhi is asking, sir, instead of Insomnia, Postman can also be used. Yes, obviously, you can use Postman also to analyze REST APIs. But in fact, I used to use Postman till 4 5 months back, but then it is very heavy on the system. Okay, and plus I don't know whether it has this timeline feature or not, but I'm not sure. But it is very heavy for my system, so I use a much more lightweight program like this, which gives me all the features that Postman has, as well as it is a bit light on the processing capacity, right? Okay, so I hope you have understood this part. I would like to show you one more thing before we go ahead. Okay, so let me go to our website rcoe.co.in and let's request index.html file using get request. What do you think? What should be the error? Okay, any ideas what should be the error if I access, sorry, not html, index.php? Any idea if I do this, what will happen? 400 series error. Okay, let's try. Okay, so it says in the timeline, it did that. It says 301 moved permanently to HTTPS. Okay, again, all my websites, I prefer HTTPS. That's why this moved permanently will always come. Okay, then if you go down and look at the response again, it is saying response again is 302. Why 302? What is 302? 302 is stands for what? Any idea? Temporary redirection. Okay, 301 and 302 both are redirection, and 301 is permanent redirection. That is what we got over here in the first request. Okay, so in the permanent, it is saying go to HTTPS and not HTTP. Okay, and in the second one, it is 302 temporary redirection. Why? I will show you why. Okay, if I go to rcoe.co.in/index.php. Okay, if I open this page, look at what happens. Okay, just look at the status bar. If I press enter, can you see what happened? Any idea what happened? Yes, it actually what happened is the user was not authenticated, and index.php file is only available to authenticated users. So the user was redirected to the login page. So that is exactly what is happening over here. Okay. So I was trying to access index.php without logging in. And what happened? It is sending me to the login page. And if you look at the preview, you can see I have got the login page. Okay, so that is how all these things work. Okay, now let me try to get another, let me change this to HTTPS to avoid that first. And let me take some random page. Okay, so this page does not exist on the server. Okay, so let's suppose I do this and send a request. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I did that and you can see what is the response. The response is 404. Why? Because that particular file is not there on the server, and as I already explained, whenever such thing happens, it is because of the client. The client has entered some invalid page name, that is because of which this error is there. That's why a 400 series error is given to you, 404. Okay. Any Okay, so let us begin the last part, that is HTTP 1.1. Okay, so this is HTTP 1.1. So what happens, as I explained in the last lecture, index.html, I wanted to receive index.html, and you can look at the file index.html. It has 4 other files: main, common, jQuery, and logo. Okay, so now what happens, it as soon as it receives, it sends another response, another request to get the main.js file, then common.js file, then again it requests another jQuery.js and logo.png. Okay, so once this is done, your page then loads. Okay, so sorry, this was HTTP 1.0. Okay, now in HTTP 1.1, what happens is, it again, it's similar. Index.html is requested. Instead of that, after getting that, what it does is, it does not create 3 different connections to get the remaining files. What it does is, it creates a single connection and sends three four different requests at this on the same connection. Okay, so one connection is made for index.html. Okay, it gets the file, then it creates one more connection, and on that connection only all the other 4 files are downloaded from the server. Okay, so that is the improvement, I can say, in HTTP 1.1. Okay, so unnecessary connections were avoided. Okay, now what happened in the latest version of HTTP that we are using? In the latest version, there are many more changes. I'm just telling you the important ones. Okay, so in the last version, that is HTTP 2.0, in the current version, what happens is, instead of so many, the problem here in previous versions where there were so many files that needs to be so many, even though there was single connection, still it has to wait for all the files to get downloaded. Okay, so now what HTTP 2.0 did is, it removed all these things. It sent only one connection, and it did all the file transfers at one time, simultaneously. All the files are downloaded at the same time in chunks. Okay, so in one request I am going to download, then I'm going to download jQuery, then I'm going to also download logo.png. Okay, so you can see in one connection itself I am downloading everything and at the same time. So it is like you're trying to multiplex your connection. Okay, so that is the advantage of using HTTP 2.0. Okay, now one thing I forgot to mention is HTTP transfers are stateless. Okay, now let me just show you what I mean by that. Okay, so it's very important feature. I forgot to add a slide on that. Okay, now what do you mean by stateless? Okay, so let me just let's suppose you are a user, and uh, you wanted to, let's suppose you open our RCOE website, CMSIS portal, and you log into the system. Okay. Once you log into the system, what you do is you go to this file. Okay. And after going to this file, then you decide, okay, I want to fill admission form. Okay. So you go to next file, form.php. Okay. So you're going to this file. Now, what happens is, if I have not implemented it properly, then the HTTP protocol is actually stateless. And what do you mean by stateless is, uh, you to access index.php, you logged in. Okay. So you are authenticated user, but because of the stateless nature, it does not know when you go to form.php that whether you have logged in or not. Okay. So that is the biggest problem of statelessness in the HTTP protocol. Okay. Now to explain you much more, in a realistic, real world environment, I hope all of you must have seen Gajni movie, right? So you must have seen how Amir Khan has that disorder of forgetting everything. The server over here is exactly like Gajni. Okay. So uh, it doesn't know which client has authenticated or not. Okay. So every request for the server is like a brand new request. Okay. So whenever uh, it's like basically Amir Khan in Gajni. Okay. So the server forgets everything. Okay. Now you may think, अरे मैंने अभी तो login किया था, right? So that means the server must be knowing. No, the server doesn't know anything, whether you have logged in or not, right? But then you may ask, then how does, but I don't log in every time to view the page. I log in only once. Okay. So that is where again the server behaves like Gajini. Okay. So if you, sorry, not like Gajini, like Amir Khan. So what Amir Khan does in that movie to remember who is who, what does the actor do? Any idea? Yeah, exactly. He takes photos, he makes tattoos on his body, right? So all those things are done, right? So same way, the server also has to do something to save the state. Okay. The server doesn't know anything about the state. So what he does is, now this there are two possibilities here. Either the client can save the state on its computer, or the server can store the state on the server. Okay. If the client is the one who is storing the state, then we call it as cookies. Okay. So we store the state of the client in the cookies. Okay. And if the server is storing the state, then we call it as session. Okay. Now most of the times we will be using sessions. Why? Can anyone tell me why we will be using sessions to store the data of the client, of the login data of the client, authentication state of the client? We will be storing in the session and not on the cookies. Exactly. So Saurabh says, so it is not misplaced. Okay. So basically client's PC, if it gets hacked, or if somebody else tries to use that PC, like for example, you are on a computer in the college. Okay. And you try to log in, and your data is stored in cookies. That means that cookie is stored in your browser, right? So if anybody else comes and checks the cookies, he will find your cookie. And once you get the cookie, then there is something called as session hijack, which can be used to get inside your account without you even knowing, right? So that is the problem if you store your session state in cookies. Okay. So normally you will store it in the server in sessions, something called as sessions. Okay. Now then that means cookies should not be used at all. cookies should be used for less sensitive data, like your shopping cart. Okay. So usually you go to Amazon or you go to Flipkart, where you add your products to your cart, that can be stored in the cookies for temporary purposes. Okay, so even if somebody gets it, I don't think that will be much problem. Okay, I'm not saying that that is what Flipkart and Amazon do. I'm just saying that is one of the possibility, okay, of using cookies. So I hope you have understood these things and how HTTP protocol is stateless. It is very important to understand HTTP protocol is stateless, and it is mandatory to save the state somewhere. If you do not save the state, every time to access every page, you will have to log in. Okay. If there is some login form, something like that. Okay. So I think that is it. And we will now switch to our practical part, that is